Hey, I'm here today to tell you exactly the one thing you need to know about whether or not it's going to remain legal to trans children. So, United States versus Skrmetti is the case that everybody is talking about. Let me give you a little bit of background here. Oh, and thanks for coming. I'm Elena. You know that, right? So, U.S. versus Skrmetti. Back in 2023, Tennessee passed HB1, which is a law that made it illegal um, for children to receive puberty blockers, hormones, or any surgical intervention to help aid them in a sex change, as if a sex change is a real thing. Basically, gender affirming care for minors was made illegal. Immediately, the Department of Justice, Biden's Department of Justice, decided to get all over Skrmetti, the Attorney General in Tennessee, and they filed a lawsuit against him, saying that 14th trans children's 14th Amendment rights are being violated. And 14th Amendment is about discrimination, like Brown v. Board of Education, helped to make sure that schools could be desegregated because children were being discriminated against based on their skin color, their race, whatever. So anyway, so they bring it to court in Tennessee, and that court immediately places an injunction on the law and says you must stop enforcing this law immediately until it's re-reviewed. So then it goes up to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, and they lift the injunction. So the law goes back into place because they said this actually isn't a discrimination case. But of course, the DOJ isn't letting it go there. And now, yesterday, December 4th, 2024, the oral arguments were heard at the Supreme Court, where the DOJ and the ACLU got to present their case in favor of transing children, and the state of Tennessee got to present their case in favor of banning the transing of children. So the players, let me give you just a quick shot of who's who here. So this guy on top, his name is, I always forget it, Rice. I can't remember. J. Matthew Rice is his name. He's the Solicitor General in Tennessee. Big job, smart head, big brain guy, I guess. He also, just fun fact, used to be a minor league baseball player for a spell. Anyway, so he is fighting on the side of Tennessee, on the side of making it illegal to trans children. Now, if this law is allowed to be upheld, it sets a precedent around the country. There are about close to 20 other states that have banned gender affirming care for children, and more want to do it. So this case is that important. This is either going to save or our children from sterilization, mutilation, and a lifetime of being medicalized, and the deepest regret anyone could ever have by cutting off perfectly healthy body parts, for example, or it's going to allow that to continue unchecked in all 50 states. We'll find out. Now, on the bottom here, on the left, we have this is the Department of Justice rep. It's Solicitor General Elizabeth B. Prelogar. She's the fourth-ranking highest official at the DOJ, and she is, I think, even more importantly, a woke genius who graduated from Harvard Law. So we can only imagine what her moral compass is. On the right, we have Chase Strangio. Yeah, that's a real name, Strangio. Chase is actually a woman in a man costume who works for the ACLU and is fighting to make sure that she can give hormones, puberty blockers, and surgical treatments to children who think that they're born in the wrong body. Strangio is another one who was, educated in woke Massachusetts, I believe, at Northeastern University, if I'm not mistaken. So now you get the idea of like who the players are, plus all the justices, of course, the 9 justices. Here's what you need to know. Because this case against Tennessee is not going to stand. If it does, I will be shocked and obviously horrified. But feelings aside, we have to talk about the law and the reality of what the law allows for. So I'm not a lawyer, asterisk, but this stuff isn't that hard to understand if you're willing to just dig in a little bit. So I did the digging, and I'm just going to present to you a basic way of looking at this. The whole case is about discrimination, right? So, like I said, they said they're discriminating on the basis of sex because they're saying, let me put it to you this way. Here's what they said yesterday. So, a boy who needs hormonal treatment in order to continue living as a healthy boy, he's allowed to get that treatment. But a girl who wants to get hormonal treatment to live as a boy, she's not allowed. So they're discriminating based on sex. But the fact of the matter is that this girl can do all she wants to her body all day and night for the rest of her life. She's never going to be a boy. So it's not so that's their argument, that there's a discrimination on sex, but it's not about a discrimination based on sex. So let me read to you just a smidge from uh, a brief that was filed on this case by the Alliance Defending Freedom. They are like this amazing legal organization that fights for family values, parental rights, and, like logic in American law. And they've been instrumental in doing other things, like, for instance, passing a parental rights bill in Tennessee, which is the strongest parental rights bill in the nation. Anyway, they said this is their argument, that this is not a sex-based discrimination case. That the law references, I'm sick, so sorry about all this coughing and stuff. That the law references biological realities doesn't mean that it targets sex. Just references biological realities, which, follow the science. Remember those people? Nor does the law bear the hallmarks of sex discrimination, sex discriminatory laws that traditionally have raised judicial hackles. Okay. It's grounded in medical realities, not outmoded stereotypes. It makes distinctions based on age and medical purpose categories reviewed solely for rationality. So, rationality is something that the trans movement doesn't really quite understand. So, again, it is reviewed for age, saying that this is not appropriate to do to children whose brains are not developed enough to make these decisions with any sort of intelligence. And it is reviewed for medical purpose. So let me give you an example. God forbid there's a 14-year-old girl who has breast cancer. She can get, under Tennessee law, she can get a mastectomy if she needs it to save her life. But the same 14-year-old girl who's just, having a hard time with puberty and has been convinced by the internet and by some psychologists that she'll be happier if she cuts off her breasts, she can't get the mastectomy. That's what it's about. It's about the medical use of the mastectomy. One is to save a life. One is to affirm a made-up delusion that doesn't necessarily always stick. And a lot of these people end up having regret for these non-reversible surgeries and treatments. So I hope that makes sense. So now that once you get, actually, you know what? They should have made this a religious discrimination case, because this whole trans thing, more than being a medical reality that, like, this is just how we were born and this is who we really are, it actually is more of a religion. This, like, just self-idolatrous worship, this worship of this pink and blue and white flag. I think they would have probably had a better case if they said this is a religious case, but alas, they failed and they went this route. So now that it's not sex discrimination and we get that out of the way, what they want to do is to try to create a special classification for transgenders called a quasi-suspect classification. So it can get like a higher level of scrutiny rather than it just being looked at like, nah, this isn't a sex-based thing. So, like, if there's something about somebody that is very specifically immutable, unchangeable, you cannot change it, and they're being discriminated against because of it. So say, like, I'll make something up. If there was a discrimination against people who have green eyes, they cannot change that. There's nothing they can do, and they should not be discriminated against because they have green eyes. They may have like a quasi-suspect classification so that we can look more closely at this and see if it's truly a discrimination case, if there's a history of discrimination, and if this law is, establishing legal discrimination. That's my understanding of it. So they're trying to get this quasi-suspect classification so that they can be like, special class. But the fact of the matter is being transgender immutable? Is it unchangeable? Did it come naturally? Is it just a part of who you are no matter what? And Justice Alito, God bless his soul, he asked this question about immutability and completely destroyed their case. I want you to listen to this exchange.
So I don't think you had a chance to finish answering my question whether transgender status is immutable. You cited a bunch of other criteria, but is it immutable?
I think that the record shows that the discordance between a person's birth, sex, and gender identity has a strong biological basis and would satisfy an immutability test. And I also think under this court's precedence for determining whether something is a suspect or quasi-suspect classification, a distinguishing characteristic is sufficient.
Does the category of does transgender status apply to individuals who are gender fluid?
I think that the distinguishing characteristic is to have a birth sex that does not align with, or a gender that does not align with one's birth sex. So it may include people who have different understandings of their gender identity, but I think it is still the distinguishing characteristic of a birth sex and a gender identity that are incongruent.
Are there individuals who are born male, assigned male at birth, who at one point identify as female, but then later come to identify as male, and likewise for individuals who are assigned female at birth, at some point identify as female, identify as male, but later come to identify as female? Are there not such people?
There are such people. I agree with that, Justice.
So it's not an immutable characteristic, is it?
So it's not immutable. It changes. It's malleable. That's the whole thing with them, is that they're just like, whatever I feel, man. So you don't have an immutable characteristic. So now you don't have a special classification to claim discrimination. So now discrimination is out the window. Their entire case is gone. It's like it just completely falls apart. You know, these transitioners, they change their minds. Not only do they, I mean, just the middle of that conversation there, where he's like, aren't there some people who are like gender fluid? Yeah. So like, yeah, one day I'm a boy, one day I'm a girl, one day I'm a boy, one day I'm a girl. So what do? Go to the doctor every day and say, I need different hormones today? I mean, their argument just is worse and worse and worse as this case went on. It's like waking up one day and being like, I'm not Asian anymore. No, yeah, you are. You're still Asian. It's like me waking up tomorrow and saying I'm black. Nope, Elena, you're not black. Sorry, still white as paste. So that's it. That's what you need to know. They're not a special class, and they're not being discriminated against. So there is no case. There were some other fun things that happened during the hearings yesterday. It was only like 2.5 hours. And, it got a little heady at times. I was like, whoa, I was like really chugging the coffee to try to keep up, because I'm not a lawyer. I don't have these conversations every day. And I had to be doing some research while I was listening to understand certain things, but I happen to enjoy it. So that's why I'm telling you about it. So Justice Sotomayor said, this was a good argument. They were talking about the risks of being of these transgender treatments. Like, for example, puberty blockers, hormones causing sterility, causing osteoporosis, causing what do you call it? PTSD, long-term mental distress and anxiety, which they've been known to do. There's a laundry list of problems that come with these things. And then, the massive risks on the surgery. Like, there are girls who are getting pieces like arm muscle cut off and having it rolled up and sewn on between their legs to be like a fake penis, where their original urethra gets like kind of woven through like a stromboli, and so that they can still go to the bathroom through the thing, but it never actually functions. It's just like a meat sack hanging between their legs, and usually it just gets infected, and they just completely end up being disfigured and disformed, and have disformed other body parts where they took the flesh in order to create that. That's just one example. Right? They get their mastectomies and they have infections that last for months. This happens, a reasonable amount of times. Anyway, so she says, That all she goes, when they're talking about these risks, she goes, all medical treatments have risks. Even taking aspirin has a risk. So yeah, like if I take too much ibuprofen and I start to get heartburn, that's a risk, and I might regret it a little bit. But that is a whole hell of a lot different than risking, when I'm 12 years old, but when I grow up, do I want kids? Risking that I'm making the right decision at 12 about my future. When I grow up, am I going to maybe wish I didn't cut off my body parts? When I grow up, am I going to wish maybe I didn't take all these hormones to lower my voice? I'm a little hoarse. I sound like I've been taking hormones to lower my voice. But they do this on purpose. They do this on purpose. Oh God. Oh, and then the attorney, the solicitor general from the DOJ, she was the one who was saying, yeah, that regret can happen with any care. I don't know. Yeah, sure. I guess there are some people who go through chemotherapy who may say, this really beat me up. I wish I had tried a homeopathic method to cure my cancer first. I'm sure that happens. But these are life and death decisions. And so then they'll say, oh, but the children will kill themselves if you don't give them these treatments, and that's absolutely not true. In fact, during the hearings yesterday, Mr., which is Miss Strangio, had to was forced to admit that studies showed that suicide rates don't go down after transition. So they're going to kill themselves if you don't transition them, but once they do that, they're still just as suicidal. No change. So maybe, just maybe, it was a mental health thing all along. Anyway, those are the highlights. That's all I have to say today. Again, remember the immutability thing. You are not a special protected class that cannot change the fact that you have green eyes or a certain color skin. You are young people, children who need to be protected from an ideology that is mutilating, sterilizing, causing, in some cases, testicular cancer is a side effect for the boys taking all these extra hormones. Can you imagine giving that to your child, being like, yeah, we'll take our chances because then we'll just cut the balls off anyway? I feel so sorry. So all of our feelings about this and wanting to be able to protect children will hopefully be validated in the law. Hopefully more and more states will continue to protect children. There were all kinds of people, hundreds and hundreds of people on the Supreme Court steps yesterday speaking in front of the press. There is so much to say about this, and there's so much more to come on this. And we're going to watch the pro-trans movement fighting like demons. They're going to be coming at us harder than ever because they feel it. They know they're losing. Their head is being pushed under the water, legally speaking, and they're not going to be able to keep grooming the children. Let's keep the pressure on them and pray that the Supreme Court hears this case and sees it the way I just presented it just now, which I think is what is going to be the case. I think they're going to uphold the state's right to protect children. All right. Thanks for coming. I'll see you soon. Bye, guys. Oh yeah. Make sure to, if you like this video, like it, drop a sub, like it, follow me at The Base Mother on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok for other stuff I do there. Take care.